Well, I have just taken the plunge again. Bought another console stereo, and Kim had always said, you know, there's probably 100 of these in the neighborhood. And it's like, yeah, I'm sure there's a few around here, but I can't just go knocking on people's doors. But I turned out I found it at the guy's house who lives around the corner there on the left. And, you know, he's not the original owner of it. I think they got it at an estate sale. But they had it on Craigslist for 100. And I had seen it, of course, but I didn't realize until he mentioned it. So it's a Zenith, and the cabinet is in really pretty good shape. There's not a scratch or mar really of really any sort on the side or the front. I think that's just dirt down there. I mean, it's in really, really good shape. Smooth, you know, no scratches. The top is in really pretty good shape. It doesn't feel smooth, but I don't know, it might just clean up. But worst case scenario, if it doesn't like clean up and polish up and stuff, which I think it might, I think it's just ground in dirt. You know, I could just lightly sand this and put another coat of lacquer on it and be good to go. I think it would look just as good as the rest of it. So I'm pleased. It's of the right vintage, Zenith, of course, it's a good brand. It's tube, and I would say early 60s is where I would probably put this. Very early 60s. I would say 60, 61, 62 at the latest, which is right in the sweet spot for me. So it's not as mid-century modern looking, it's more traditional cabinet, but I still like it. It actually looks like the one that I had before, except that it's stereo instead of monaural. That was a monaural cabinet. So, but it's got, it has a tape input, which I'm hoping that I can use for an iPod. I hope the line level would be the same. I would imagine it would be. Tape phono, AM, FM, of course, and FM, AFC. Tuning, loudness, balance. This is balance. This is loudness, which is volume. And then stereo selector for mono, stereo, and extension speakers. And then this is the on-off, push-pull on-off. And then to turn it, there's a reverberation. So I'm assuming there's a spring reverb inside. And then we've got treble and bass, and then presence, which I'm assuming is mid-range. It's got a place to store records. Does not have the original turntable. This is just some realistic thing. I don't know. It might be a decent little cheap turntable I can use up in the man cave. It's a BSR, but I'm hoping that I could put the Gerard in here, which color-wise would be perfect because this is sort of that same brown in here. And then I'd have the brown BSR, or the brown Gerard. I think it would look awesome. So it doesn't power up right now, which is why I got it for $25 instead of the 100 that they were asking. When I went over and talked to him yesterday, he said it would go down to 50. I said, well, I would think about it at 50, but it's not running. I said, let me think about it. So I thought about it, went back over there today and said, if it was running, if it turned on, I definitely would do 50. But, since it's not, would you take 25 and I'll just get out of your house? And I think his wife was sort of happy to get it out of the house. So it does come with the operating manual, which is cool. A little bit folded up here, but it's all right. I can maybe get it flattened out some. And then there's actually a little manual for the little record player too. So, anyways, we'll see what. Pop the back off and see. Make sure it's tube. I'm sure that it is. I can't imagine that it wouldn't be. It doesn't say solid state on it, which at that period of time they definitely would have promoted that fact. So, fairly certain it's tube type, and we'll see what we see if we got. Hopefully, it's just a fuse blown. The reason it's not powering on and not the power transformer, that would be bad. But I figured the cabinet being in pretty good shape, if it doesn't work out, if the electronics are bad or beyond help, then I could use this cabinet for the Fisher. I would just, of course, need to orient it this way, instead. But I'm pretty sure I could rework this somehow. Probably figure out a way to do it. Turn the thing that way, maybe have it over here, the radio over here, and then take this thing and drop it in over here for records. So anyway, we'll see what happens. Well, I popped the back off here, and I think I see one reason why it might not have been powering up. I hope that it's the only reason. The cord that we were plugging in, there were two cords that we were plugging in over at the guy's house. One was for the turntable, and the other one, turns out it went to this guy here, which is a phono preamp, which went, that the turntable plugged in on that side, and this side was just one of the wires that was, just dangling out, RCA type. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know why they would have done that. Maybe they just ran it to another amplifier. The guy said they had it running to speakers all over the house. I'm not quite sure what was going on there. So it's definitely been, I wouldn't say modified, but kind of has. So we'll have to figure out what's going on. My point is, though, is that the amplifier, which is of course the power supply, wasn't even plugged in. I may or may not want to do that without doing some quick initial tests anyway. Here's the fuse, which goes in right there, and visually, if I can get it to focus. Oops. I don't know. Visually, it doesn't look broken, but I could throw the ohm meter on and see if it's open or not. So I'm gonna kind of wondering if the amp is even working. I don't know. Hopefully it is, but we'll have to see. What's going on here? Anyways, leave that in better. So it looks to be push-pull. And I'm going to pop one of these guys out here and see what they are. They're all Zenith tubes. I don't know if they're original. So they're 6BQ5s. Push-pull configuration. And I'm going to guess probably a 12AX7. I'll put that in a minute. Probably a 12AX7 in the driver position. And I would imagine, when there's one for each side, and I would imagine that the actual preamp tube would be in the head end unit. So I don't know electrically what's going on here yet. This, of course, is the rectifier. Not crazy about powering it up just because so much of it was disconnected, almost bypassed. It's like they had almost given up on this guy. But none of the tubes have been messed with. Those are all original Zenith tubes. So I'm going to say that the people probably didn't really work on this. It basically doesn't look molested in terms of this. Probably I'm going to say the same thing. This is where the record is. Let's show this out here. There's the tuner and preamp right there. And I don't think it's really been messed with too much. I'll be honest with you. I'd have to pull it out and make sure. But it's been modified in the sense of using it for other things, right? So we've got wires here that are clearly not factory original. I'm kind of going over here to these speakers. So I'm not quite sure what's going on. The amp could be dead, but we'll have to wait and see. It could just be a fuse, or maybe a cap was blown. I don't go so far as to say it's terminal, but you always run that risk. And it's got, I don't know if all these wiring harnesses have been left intact, but so far it looks like they are. We got one guy here. I don't know what this would be. It was just sort of flopping down here in the bottom. Not quite sure what that is yet. I do know that these are where the external speakers would plug if you did have a set of those. And I'm gonna guess, I don't know. That's for antenna, I think. Oh, this is a tape input here. And then these here, I would venture to say, are probably one's white and one's red, but I don't know. They could be related to the speakers because I know this is where the external speakers generally would plug in, probably if they were Zenith factory. So anyway, it looks like it's got a 12-inch woofer and a horn, mid-range I would imagine, and then a regular conical tweeter, and same on both sides. It's just their shelf here for the turntable stuff, and then down low. And it also has, I would never use this, but it's kind of cool though, a spring reverb. So it does have a reverberation thing, and I noticed that control up on the tuner. So yeah, I think this was sort of a, probably a mid-range model, maybe even higher. Definitely the cabinet is definitely nicer than the Fisher's was. The Fisher's was the particle board and not even the good stuff. It was just almost like an OSB type particle board. And this is plywood or solid wood even, I don't know. Definitely plywood on the bottom. So the construction of this is much better. Zenith made good stuff. They didn't make junk. So I'm hoping that the electronics are okay. So, all right, well, I'm just going to probably, dig into this a little bit and maybe clean it out and just see what we got. I have to do my interview stuff, so I can't play around with this too much. But I might get this old junk out of here at least and see if we can't get more towards the original. Okay, well, a little update here. I've learned a few things about this Zenith. First of all, stupidly today, I was just out here, had it turned on, and was just kind of listening to it, just making sure it was going to run. And I went off to do something, and I heard it stop playing, just went quiet. So I came back over here, and none of the lights were on. I was like, So I made sure it was plugged in. Plugged in over there, and turned it off at the switch and pulled it back on. The lights came back on, but I still didn't hear anything except that I had a hum out of the right channel and nothing out of the left channel. I was like, And then at that very moment I noticed this little puff of smoke coming out the back, so I quickly turned it off and unplugged it, and I tried to get the back off real quick, but couldn't get it off quick enough to see where the smoke was coming from. But definitely down in the power supply, power amp area, back here in this corner. So let's see if I can get a light on this. Definitely out of this area here, and really more off to the left side. So I'm gonna guess that it was probably this can cap. Now, I felt the transformer and it didn't feel hot, and I felt the can cap and it didn't feel hot. So it might not have been that. Could have been a resistor burning up underneath, but something was definitely going toasty. So I won't be playing around with this thing anymore until I can pull the chassis out and restore it electrically. And to that end, I punched in the chassis number in Google, and I got an eBay hit for Sam's PhotoFact for $5 plus $1.25 shipping. So I went ahead and ordered that up, and so that should be on its way pretty soon. And it's actually a photo fact for not only the power amp, but also this chassis here, which is, I don't remember the numbers, 14H25 or something like that, is this, and the power amp is like 7H43 or something. So I got the photo fact on the way. So once I get that in, I think I'm just going to go ahead and just do a full recap job on the power amp, and hopefully I didn't harm anything. It didn't blow the 2 amp fuse, so I don't know that it would have drawn that much. I'm sure it was just probably a resistor or one of the caps gone. But you know, you always run the risk of screwing up the transformer. What else? I brought the Gerard down, the turntable, and just on a whim to see if it would fit into this cutout, and it didn't. It's definitely made for, I think, probably a voice and music turntable. So I opened this one up, and it looked like it was just the plinth, I guess you can call it, for this is just screwed in, and it should lift out. And it's a little bit wider than this, but you know, I'm hoping that I'll be able to slide this out. There are a couple of screws up under here, but it's tongue and grooved in, but I'm hoping that it'll slide out, and then I can get the plinth from that one installed in here. So that's my plan. Hopefully it'll work out. I'm about out of battery, so I just wanted to give a quick update on this thing. So hopefully I didn't hurt you, my little Zenith. Well, I thought I would, just for something to do tonight, just go ahead and pull the power amp chassis on this Zenith and see if I could maybe tell where that smoke was coming from. I don't really see anything that looks noticeably charred. See a couple swollen caps, of course. I don't know if this is one of those bumblebee caps they're always talking about. They're supposed to be pretty crappy. Well, there's a cracked resistor right there. You can see that split out. Oops, it's gone. And that's how those carbon comps go. They just kind of come apart. They don't swell up and burn. That could have been it. It was an awful lot of smoke just for that, but I suppose that could have been it. Don't really see anything else that looks visibly burnt. It didn't smell, well, I guess I don't know what a carbon resistor smells like when it burns, but what it smelled like more to me was the electrolytic. So I'm kind of wondering if my thinking now is that it's this can cap here. This is the underside of it. I sort of stuck my nose down there and gave it a whiff, and it kind of smelled like what that smoke did, so I don't know. I was hoping, though, that I'd come in here and, you know, be able to see a real obvious char on something, but I don't. And I just don't know if this guy here would produce that much smoke. Especially because this would have been in the back. Well, no. Towards the front of the unit. This side would have been. And the smoke was clearly pouring out of the back. But, I mean, it could have, you know, wafted over there. I just don't know. But nothing obvious here, so once I get the schematic and see what the parts list is, I can go ahead and start putting together a list of things to go order some new caps. And I don't think I'm going to try to restuff this can cap. I'm going to do my best to try to go ahead and do something under here, just with a terminal strip or something. I don't want to go through that trying to desolder this and replacing this can cap with a dedicated unit. If I can, I'll just put something, just put the new caps down here. But anyway, first look underneath. It's not a whole hell of a lot going on. It's pretty, plenty of room, which is good. So we will get the caps ordered, and I may want to go ahead and get my capacitor tester, my solar capacitor tester, and see if I can maybe preemptively determine whether or not this is bad. They're all going to be replaced, but I would at least like to know if that's completely shorted out, that's what the failure point was for this thing conking out. That would be my guess, but we'll see. Okay, well, I've broken out the solar capacitor tester to try to maybe see if we can test the can cap. It's the one I'm probably most interested in. It would probably be the most costly to repair, or to buy new ones, but I suspect it's probably bad. So the first thing we're going to do is a leakage test. Of course, there's 3 sections in this thing. The one I've got it hooked up to now is 80 microfarad, and the one next to it is 70, and then the third lug is 40. So the way that you test these, there's instructions here, but basically we're going to test it for leakage. So we have the capacity range, which only goes up to 70, but we're not much over that. And then the working volts. This is max rated at 400 volts. So I could probably go to the number 4 spot. Anyway, you just follow this across. And the setting for switch S, which is this one, tells you what number to go on. So we're going to go to, I think these are 400 volts. So we'll do it at 4. Now what it says here is if you have satisfactory capacitor if no glow in leakage neon or a steady dull glow which goes out within a few minutes. Doesn't say how many. High leakage is a steady dull glow which goes out within several minutes. And then shorted is a steady bright glow which does not diminish after a period of time. Now I remember I tested the can cap in the Fisher receiver, and the leakage, like this light went out like within a few seconds, and so I think those were still good. They weren't leaking. This one here is flickering, like it maybe wants to go out. I don't know if it's showing up on the camera. Try to think what the working volts on this is. It's down there on the cap, but I don't know if we can see. Maybe the camera will focus in. I'll be able to look here. I don't think so. I think it's 400 volts. This is sort of looking somewhat promising. Of course, if I put it up to 5, which is the 4 to 500 volt range at the bottom, switch 5, it's steady. But if I let's bring this back up to the 4 again. I really don't know what quote-unquote working voltage this would have. The max voltage, I think, is 400. I really don't know what the working voltage would be. But I don't know, it hasn't really gone out. It's just sort of. So I'm going to say that's leaky. Alright, so we'll grab my pliers here. And, whoa. Hello. That's one way to discharge your capacitor. Okay, let's try that again. Alright, I think I must have touched ground there. Hopefully I didn't blow this thing out. Oh, alright, we'll go back to 4. I definitely think that discharged the capacitor. But I'm going to stop this while we wait and see what this light does. I guess while we're waiting, I'm going to go ahead and check the capacitance, which for electrolytics is C1, or at least those of this size. And then you flick this over to electrolytic. Then we're going to look at the I for the widest possible thing, and that is on this. Then you read this outer scale here, since we're on the red, and that is pretty much right on 70. So I think that's good, but we'll see how this leakage is. We'll check back here in a minute and see if it's gone out. Well, all we're really getting is just this flickering. It's probably been 2 or 3 minutes. So I'm going to say that this other section is leaky as well. So let's see if I can keep from creating a catastrophic spark this time. I don't know what I touched. I must have touched ground. Come on, you. Okay. Alrighty. Turn this back on. Just to wait a second for the tubes to warm up, since they were already running. And we'll put this back on 4. And we'll come back here in a minute. Okay, well, once again, all we've really gotten is, some flickering here, if that really. So it's definitely not going out. So I'm going to say this is very leaky, if not shorted, and especially if I go to 5. It's just solid and it stays that way. So I'm going to say that these caps are definitely bad. We'll go ahead and test the capacitance, although really not a lot of point to it. But this last one here is 40, I think I said. And we are pretty much right at 40, just a hair above, but I don't know how accurate this thing is at the higher capacitances, because the scale goes from like 8 to 15 to 40 to 70. So, there's no granularity here at the end of the scale. So I really don't think this thing is very good for testing filter caps, unfortunately. There's probably better ones out there. I really just like the look of this thing more than anything. But, at least it's a valid, leakage test, I think. It's pretty reliable, and that's the thing. It'll pump the proper amount of volts through here that these things actually work at. So that's the advantage there. Let me get this thing off here, again, without shocking myself. So I need new caps, which is not a big surprise. I was going to recap it anyway, but I wanted to see if maybe that thing was so far gone that that's what was smoking. I don't really think that's the case, unless it is really shorted, again, because if I'm on 5 over here, it's solidly lit, which does indicate a short. So I mean, it might be shorted out, and that might have been what was smoking, but we'll have to see. So the next step, I think, is to go ahead and get the new caps, and I want to get to the electronics store, because I feel like they've got a lot of these values here, And I might have to go online for the larger electrolytics, we'll see. But that'll be the next step, just get this thing recapped and hooked back up, and I think it'll probably be good to go. There's not, like I say, a whole lot to it. So I don't think it's going to take too long to recap. And I guess the only other thing is that, you know, I don't have a tube tester, and I don't know how strong these tubes are. They definitely did say Zenith on them, so they may well be the original tubes. And depending on how many hours this thing had on it, they could be weak. Who knows? All right, well, check back in. Okay. Believe it or not, I hardly did. I've got 2 of my 3 capacitors that I ordered in. This came from Tube Depot, and let's see, I ordered these Sunday, and it's only Wednesday, so that was fast. And then this guy came from eBay, and I didn't know what brand it was. It's my replacement for the 70 microfarad. It's 68 microfarads. I figured that was pretty damn close. But it's a Nichicon, so that's good. Good brand name. And it was cheap. So I just thought I would test these real quick and show the difference here. So I'm going to do a leakage test first. You can see here, that's all the way on the 5, and the light is already out. So that is not leaky, according to the test parameters described up here. So let's test capacitance. I've got it on electrolytic, and we'll look at the eye. Oops. Try that again. Okay, well, the recap job is done. I've got my 80 microfarad, 222s for 40. These are in parallel, and 168, which is spec'd at 70, so that was the closest that I could get at the voltage rating. And these are all at 400 or 450, I think 450 volts rated. So that's basically the can cap replacement. I had to install these 2 terminal strips, which meant drilling through the chassis, but I don't care. I'm not that much of a purist. I'd rather do that than try to replace the can. And then, let's see, capacitor-wise, this is new, that's new, that's new, and the same thing on this side, other channel. And then these 2 and this guy are all replacements. And there's all the old ones, including those so-called bumblebees. I don't know, the bumblebees were here, and I just replaced them with Mylar. So I don't know if, we'll see how it sounds. I guess if it doesn't sound too great, I might go ahead and spend a little bit more money. I think this is in the signal chain. So I might want to get a better cap. These were definitely not very expensive. Maybe a polyester or something. Polyester film. But anyway, I've got them soldered on there with a coil wrap just around the existing lead. So if I wanted to replace these, it'd be very easy. I would just heat it up and pull it, slide it off. So that's one of the reasons I did those that way. And then these 2 resistors here and here are replacements, 56 ohm. This was the one, or the place at least, where the carbon comp had burnt up. This one was still specking out okay, but I figured, hell, you know, I'll just get them matching and new. So I don't know if that was necessary or not, but that's what I decided to do. Alright, so I really can't think of anything else to do on this. I did pretty much check all the resistors, and they were all reasonably within tolerance. There were a few that drifted a little bit high, but none too far off. Oh yeah, here was another electrolytic cap that I replaced, a little 100 microfarad at 25 volts. So I'm about ready to throw this thing back into the cabinet here and power it up again and see what happens. Hopefully whatever caused it to go last time won't recur. Well, so update here. I installed the amp into the cabinet last night, and it seemed to power on just fine. And even though it lacked like some bass response, and I still don't feel like it had a lot of volume. It seemed to be working okay. And at one point, though, I was listening to Smart Pepper, and instantly, all of a sudden, it just went bzzz and just started buzzing. The music went away and it just started buzzing real bad. Kind of like it did the last time when it quit and that resistor fried, but a little different sound. So I jumped up real quick and shut it off and went ahead and pulled the chassis out, and the transformer was pretty hot, and that was really all I noticed. Disconnected everything, pulled it all out, took it over on the workbench, and flipped it over and didn't really see anything that looked burnt or anything, and it wasn't smoking. The only thing I noticed was that this one output tube, and I don't know if this is going to show up, see that black mark on there? I think it's kind of on the glass, but it's also on the plate. I think that this was red plating. See, on this side it looks kind of gray, more gray, or a duller gray, I guess. I wonder if this tube is fried or was red plating. None of the other ones are like that. And I never really noticed that before, but I hadn't really looked at it. So I read online. I was concerned about the heat of the transformer. I read online what you can do is, it's usually one of two things. Either there's a short in the transformer because it gets so hot, or there's too much current draw, which is normally a biasing or a bad cap. Well, the caps are all new, all of them in this unit, and the biasing, I suppose, could be off. That might account for that tube red plating. But they said what you can do is take the tubes out and power it up, and then if the transformer gets hot after sitting for like 10 or 20 minutes again, then it's a short in the transformer. It should not get hot when it's not under a load. Zenith transformers, I read a lot online, do get hot. People do say that they're probably under spec'd. But I've had this in for 15 minutes turned on, and it's cool to the touch. So I don't think it's the transformer shorting out. I'm going to guess that either the bias is not set properly, one of those bias resistors is off, or I suppose this tube could be bad. It could have caused it. Oops, where'd it go? Or the balance pot might need to be adjusted. So I think what I'm going to do tonight is go ahead and let this test complete. I'm going to do 20 minutes of this thing being on. If it hasn't gotten hot by then, I don't think it's going to. It might maybe be a few degrees warmer than it was at the beginning, but I don't even really think so. It's probably just my hand getting used to it. So I'll finish this test, and then I think I'm going to go ahead and put the tubes back in and just see if maybe it does it again. And then I think the next thing that I'm going to do is go ahead, before I do any more restoration on this, I want to definitely have these tubes tested, probably all of them, but then I also want to pull the tuner chassis to make sure that there's not a burnt component in there, especially in the preamp signal chain. That might account for that buzzing. So anyway, that's the update. I was a little bit disappointed when that happened, but live and learn. It's old stuff, so it's not going to behave perfectly, most likely. But I still do like it. All right. Well, while we were on vacation this past week, I received via FedEx my latest little purchase from eBay. It is a pretty much period correct Zenith Cobramatic automatic record changer, and this is VM manufactured. And looking at the date code, I'm coming up with the 8th week of 1959. So I don't know. I think I said it worked. I haven't tested it. I haven't plugged it in. I wouldn't really have a way to do it, honestly. I'm not even sure the plugs will work with this without some modification. I might have to direct wire it or come up with some other kind of a multi-pin connector for it. My hope was that it would be a direct drop-in replacement for the one that came out of here. I figured that the one that came out of it was a VM. It probably was, but unfortunately the plinth is not a direct match, so that kind of sucks. So I am going to have to end up popping this out somehow, I think, and making a new one. Popping it out, I think, is going to be the hard part. But regardless, it is a Zenith branded, anyway, badged record changer. So I'm really happy to have that, and it is an actual Cobramatic, even though it's a VM. I'm sure it has the patented Cobramatic works, and I don't know what the needle is like. It's probably not very good. I don't know how hard it's going to be to find a replacement, but I'll figure something out. So anyways, looks really good. The chrome on it is in absolutely excellent shape. It's not pitted at all anywhere. And the paint job is really good as well. I think it's just going to need cleaned up cosmetically. I don't see really anything wrong with the cosmetics. The matte is kind of dirty. I'm hoping that that cleans up with some mild detergent. I'm sure it probably will. Even if it doesn't, it looks pretty good. It's not so bad, but I haven't tried to clean it yet. The platter does seem to spin pretty smoothly. I think if you can hear maybe just a little bit of rubbing, but I would expect that, and that's probably not too hard to get the spindle bearings out. But it does seem to go pretty well. Again, I haven't plugged it in yet, and probably won't for some time. My assumption is that the motor is good. I like that it's a VM because the Voice of Music website, the guy that sells and services these, is really good about getting parts. So I don't think I'll have any problem with the idler wheel. Probably any of the other little tidbits in here, I'm sure he could probably get for me. I'll pay a little bit, but my biggest concern, I think, is the cartridge. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, just wanted to show off my latest acquisition. Oh, I just wanted to also have a look at it with the other component. I think it looks really sharp. I do wish that this was more of the brown color, like the Gerard is after I painted it, but whatever. I think this will look great, and especially being a Zenith, and I really like the chrome on this. I think it looks real sharp. So anyway, talk to you later.